Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xsolla sessions here in San Francisco in 2026. We're thrilled to have you in the room. We have our last session of the day, part of the developer relation teams. We have Hello Money, your first Xsolla integration in under 15 minutes. We're going to welcome Hayden to the stage.
Woo. Hello, everyone. I'm really hoping you'll remember a lot of this presentation, but I can guarantee the one thing you will remember is the theme music of that intro video. That will stay in your head all day. Before we get into this, I need to make a quick confession. So I started Xsolla 2 months ago today, and in my first 2 weeks onboarding, I sat down to do an integration. And I really wanted to capture the developer experience from start to finish. So I did this with no insider help, just me, the documentation, and a blank Unity project. Now, I've been working in this space for several years and working with developers on exactly this kind of tooling challenge. So I felt pretty confident that this was well within my wheelhouse and something that really shouldn't take me that long. But the result was it took me almost a week. And this was a real timely reminder for me of the gap in this industry of the supposedly quick integration times we constantly see advertised versus the reality when we actually go to integrate it ourselves. And I'm sure many devs in here today have found something similar. So I understand the irony of the statement on the board now, saying that you can now do it in less than 15 minutes. But here's what's changed. About 3 weeks ago, the Xsolla team shipped something new. And it was so new that when I first saw it, I was actually a little bit annoyed, because here was this tool that brought everything that I'd spent the best part of a week trying to piece together and put it in one place. All the code, all the documentation, all your configuration options, brought into context in a dynamic interface, ready to go from the moment you open a blank project. I've never seen anything quite like it, and that's why I've even gone as far as to say it's the hello world of game monetization integrations. That's the level of simplicity and accessibility I want you to keep in mind as we move through this talk. So I'm Hayden, a developer evangelist here at Xsolla and part of the newly formed developer relations team. And our role is to work directly with developers on the challenges you face integrating our products. I've got several years in the gaming industry, and I've got 4 of those specifically working with developers on monetization, so I know firsthand how overwhelming and complex this landscape can get. But this talk is about changing that. By the time you leave here today, you're going to have a clear, practical path of how to go from 0 to your first transaction in 15 minutes or less. So how are we going to get there? We're going to start by talking about the opportunity, the landscape right now, and why the timing really matters. I'm then going to introduce to you the tool that I referenced a minute ago, which breaks monetization down into 4 simple steps. We'll walk through each of those steps in turn, and then we'll end with the resources for you to go away and implement it all straight away. There'll also be time for a quick Q&A at the end. So let's get into it. So what's changed in 2025 to make this conversation worth your attention right now? For those of you that weren't aware, 6 months ago in the US, on iOS for example, offering alternative payment flows to your users was impossible. And across Europe, platforms decided what third-party options were available to you or not. How your players paid you and how much of that you got to keep wasn't something you had any control over. But now that's all changed. Now developer choice is not only legal, it's fully compliant. And the numbers really speak for themselves. If we take the example of iOS in the US right now, every $10 a player spends on your platform, $3 of that, $10 they spend on your game, $3 of that goes straight to the platform. If you switch that to interacting directly with Xsolla for your transactions, that $3 drops to just 50 cents. That's a 25% margin recovery on every sale at any scale. Alternative payment flows are opening the doors to lower fees, higher margins, and for the first time for many, a direct relationship with your players. So we know the opportunity is real, but opportunity and accessibility aren't always the same thing. And starting is often where most developers get stuck. So we've built something to help with that. I like the thing many of you guys turn to at 2 a.m. in the morning, 6 hours into a debugging session when the docs don't quite make sense anymore. It centers entirely around pizza. we roll the video, please? We call it PizzaKit. And firstly, it's a fully functioning, hyper-casual, and highly addictive game. But more importantly than that, it's an open source, platform-agnostic demo specifically designed to reduce the friction of integrating with Xsolla. You can think of it as your real-time SDK explorer that allows you to play, learn, and integrate in real time. On the left here, you're seeing the game interface, everything the player is going to see as they're interacting with your game. And on the right, the SDK activity. Every API log there, every output visible, and every response inspectable. You've also seen a sneak peek of some of the other features which we're going to go through later. But you can think of this as your playable reference guide, and it breaks monetization down into 4 simple steps. Authenticate, load catalog, purchase product, and finalize purchase. Not 50 pages of documentation or a week of integration work, just 4 steps in 15 minutes. Can we head to the next slide, please? So let's start from the top. Step 1, authenticate. And can we roll the video? So what we're going to see when the video plays is we're going to see the logs happen straight away on initialize of the game. So what we're seeing is user ID is created and found. The SDK is initialized, and the access token is granted. And that's your authentication done. Step 1, tick. But we know that logs aren't enough. They only show you the outcome, right? Where's the code I need to write, and where do I even find that code in the first place? If we want this to be a real-time SDK explorer, we need it to be more than just logs. And that's why PizzaKit brings the code and the documentation all inside one interface, directly relevant to what's happening on screen. And can we go to the next slide, please? And we follow this principle throughout PizzaKit, and that is start simple and scale. Now, when we come to authentication, the simplest method is client-side with device ID. This is a no-friction method that requires 0 login screens, 0 account management, and more importantly, 0 servers. The SDK generates the token automatically from the device ID. This is a drop-and-go solution ready to go out of the box, ideal for client-side only games, prototypes, or any project where you want to ship quickly. But we understand this might not be right for where your game's right now. What if you want a player ID system, you've already got a full back end, or you want an ID to persist across different platforms? Well, then for that, we have server-side authentication. And this is where we start to see the first parts of the magic of what the PizzaKit demo brings. Because inside PizzaKit, you can switch the configs, as we're seeing on screen here, apply the changes, and in real time, the documentation and the code will update. You get to see exactly the changes you need to make as you move through the different architectures. In this example, we're going to swap our device ID for an Xsolla JSON web token, which is going to provide you with fully controlled server authentication. PizzaKit allows you to explore these options and see exactly what they entail before you even need to write a line of code. And when you are ready, most of it's there to copy and paste. So, step 1's done, authentication's covered. Let's move on to step 2 and the load catalog. If we can roll the video again, this time we're going to start by filtering the logs so we can see specifically the relevant ones for this stage of development. And when we do that, we can see 2. Load catalog, which is requesting your products, and catalog loaded, which is confirming they've been received. And for each one of those, we can open them up, see the requests, the response, and the data all in real time. Move to the next slide, please. But this simplicity goes deeper than just surface level. Those of you that have experience dealing with different platforms and catalogs will know you likely have to manage one catalog per platform. That means every change you need to make, every product you want to add, or remove or edit, multiple changes on each of those platforms. With Xsolla, we reduce that to one catalog. One source of truth that loads across all your platforms at runtime, so when you change it once, it's live everywhere. And interacting with the catalog is also very straightforward. Those of you familiar with Unity's in-app framework, for example, will see nothing surprising here. It's the same familiar flows and the same structure, just with no management overhead. But even if it is just one catalog to rule them all, you still need to work out how to set it up and how to run it. So just like authentication, PizzaKit shows you the options available and and exactly how to go about implementing them. If you're already on native platforms, we have a really simple drag and drop solution. You drop your credentials into the publisher platform, and your catalog will sync and be pulled in instantly. If you're working from scratch, then you can add the items manually also in the publisher account. Both those methods are clear, straightforward, and require no code. But if you do need to operate at scale, you want to add, remove, and edit items programmatically, then we've also got our server API. PizzaKit documents all the paths and all the scenarios, so you can find the correct solution based on the architecture you have. And you can implement it all in just a few clicks. So, our player's authenticated, we've got a single catalog that's synced across all our platforms. Now we're ready for step 3, and the purchasing product. At this point, our player has navigated to our store, they've found the item they're interested in, and they've hit purchase. And this is where we get to see the real impact of the legal changes we started this conversation with. Because right now, if we stick to the US and iOS example, at this stage in the user journey, you can present your players with a dual bidding screen. And this means you're presenting them with a choice. Continue to navigate through the native platform, or go direct with you through Xsolla. Now, we already know from the previous slides that going direct is going to lower those fees. This is your opportunity to pass those on to your players to incentivize them to interact directly with yourself. I'm not sure if you can see from the example here, but there's a 10% off discount if they go direct with Xsolla. And you get to start building that relationship with your players. It's a win-win on both sides of the transaction. So what's happening in the SDK? If we look at the logs, we see all of that is contained in just one SDK interaction, purchase. And that's because that's all the interaction your client needs to do with Xsolla right now. But behind the scenes, there's a lot more going on. Under the hood, the payment token gets created, and PlayStation launches in an external browser. We'll come back to why that's important later. From the point it's opened, the status is tracked, and the SDK waits so that it can fire a callback once the purchase is complete. So to summarize, we've got the payment flow initiated, the order lifecycle managed, and the transaction completion all covered with one SDK interaction and no further developer thought. But what code's needed to actually get that going? If we look at the example here, we see it's just 3 components. Initiate purchase, which we call on the product that they want to buy, and then your success and your failure callbacks. All the inner workings abstracted away so you can focus on what really matters, which is collecting the revenue and controlling the experience with your player. And on the note of abstraction, this isn't just technical, because Xsolla isn't just your payment processor in this scenario. It's also your merchant of record. And we're just going to jump out of the payment flow quickly to dive in a bit deeper of what a merchant of record actually is and why it's worth really understanding for developers. Being your merchant of record means Xsolla is legally authorized to sell on your behalf. And what that means is we take all the responsibility that comes with that role. So, VAT, sales tax, and local regulations across 200 regions worldwide, all taken care of so you don't have to worry. You also get our enterprise-grade fraud protection, which monitors player behavior and stops 99.9% of bad transactions. So you can add disputing chargebacks to the list of things that you no longer need to worry about. And finally, going direct with Xsolla means you get access to verified emails so you can build that D2C relationship with your players for the first time and start retargeting and marketing specifically with the players directly that are playing your game. So jumping back to the flow, we see that one SDK log made up of 3 code components provides you not only with a secure payment cycle, but a compliance layer, a tax layer, and a full fraud layer, along with D2C opportunities that you just can't get with native billing right now. So what configuration and flexibility do you have when it comes to this stage of the purchase? I mentioned earlier that we open by default in an external secure browser. And that's a compliant choice, because right now that's the recommended path in the US for external flows. But what if immersion and UX is your priority, and there's other options that are compliant in your region? Well, then you can navigate to the native in-app UI option, apply the changes, and see exactly what it would entail to get that PlayStation displayed in your game UI. And it's worth mentioning at this point that the PlayStation itself is also highly customizable. You can start in the platform publisher account and just update some basic themes and colors using our theme customizer UI. If you want full control though, you can also use our headless checkout system, which enables you to control the entire payment experience. PlayStation's great for impulse buys, such as players lost a life, they've nearly got a high score, and you want to keep them in the game and offer a frictionless opportunity for them to continue. What if you want a more expansive store experience? Well, if that's the case, then you can configure for the buy button, which is going to land your players directly in your web shop for a richer storefront experience, where you can offer them bundles, offers, and virtual currencies. And like everything we've discussed today, the web shop itself is very easy to use and highly customizable. Whilst outside of the context of PizzaKit, you can get out-of-the-box templates for your web shop. Or if you're already on a native store, you can pass us your URL and we'll pull the branding and add it to that template. So you've got a direct branded payment channel with no code required. And if you want full end control, then you can go for our headless web shop and you can control the entire front end and just let Xsolla handle the stuff behind the scenes. At every stage, PizzaKit shows you how to do it. So, authentication's done. We've got our catalog loaded globally. Our purchase flow is initiated and we're fully compliant with Xsolla acting as our merchant of record. We can now move on to the final step, which is finalize purchase. At this stage, the transaction's complete. So now your game client needs to react. We know from the previous slides that the SDK has been tracking the order status in the background to see when it's going to change. And here we see the outcome of that change. The callback gets fired and a receipt gets delivered to you automatically. And within that receipt, you've got everything you need to act on that purchase and know that it's legitimate. And from there, your logic takes over. And finalize follows a very consistent three-part pattern. First, we validate the purchase. With one SDK method provided and the receipt that's automatically returned to you, you have everything you need to confirm it's a legitimate purchase. Then you have two more jobs. Firstly, you're going to want to grant the item. This is likely going to be notifying your player, making it accessible, updating the inventory. Xsolla provides you with the confidence so that you can focus on the experience. And finally, there's consume the purchase. And this is a really important step, because if you don't consume the purchase, that item can remain pending, and every time the player reboots, it could be granted again. This can obviously lead to inventory corruption, a support team headache, but also a player trust issue. So it's something we definitely want to avoid. And with Xsolla, there's one SDK prompt, and it handles all of that. And it tells us, item's been delivered, we're good to go. But what happens when payments fail? It might be rare, but it does still happen. The beauty of Xsolla is it's handled the exact same way as the success pathway. PlayStation tracks the purchase, it surfaces the error, and your callback gets fired, so you can handle how you want to present that to the player. At every stage, Xsolla handles the stuff behind the scenes, but puts you in control of the client-facing stuff. So, customization options. Client-side validation is technically the simplest way to validate, and this would require the validation performed entirely on the device. This is quick to integrate, and doesn't require a server, and it's certainly better than no validation at all. But it's open to exploitation because it's client-side only. So this is the first time in this flow where we actually default to level 2 of the options we provide, and that would be the Events API. And you can think of this as a client-side alternative to webhooks. Xsolla queues the purchase events on its side, and your client polls them automatically. And this is all configured in just one line. Not too much more to integrate than client-side validation, but much more reliable. And that's why we default to it. But if you want the full security approach and your architecture is there to match it, then we offer fully authoritative server-side validation through webhooks. In this scenario, Xsolla sends your server the purchase notifications, and your server can act on them with full control. PizzaKit documents every single option you have and exactly what it entails for you to get it up and running. So you can start where you are and scale as your architecture does. But the key here is there's no reason that you can't start monetizing right now, because wherever you're starting from, there's a method that works for you. And that's it. 4 steps and your full monetization flow done. Authenticate, load catalog, purchase product, and finalize purchase. At every stage, PizzaKit has united the documentation, the configuration options, and the code all in one place. So whatever your starting point and whatever your goals, it shows you a clear path to get there. It was never designed as just an educational tool. It was meant to be a dynamic implementation assistant. So you can play, connect the dots in real time, and integrate quickly. We believe everything you need to go from 0 to your first test transaction is distilled into a platform that offers you almost 0 friction. And that's what a real 15-minute integration looks like to us. So I've been talking for about 20 minutes. And in less time than I've been talking, we believe you can go from 0 to your first test transaction and still brew a coffee. I do have to put one small disclaimer in there, though, and that's the 15-minute caveat does not include the time that you will lose trying to complete your pizza empire before you actually start integrating. That one's all on you. So, the regulatory changes are real, the opportunity is real, and now you've seen that the simplicity and the tools are real too. PizzaKit demo is live right now. The game is open source and on GitHub, and it all links to the Xsolla SDK. All 3 of those are available at those QR codes. There is also a feedback QR code just here. As I said at the beginning, we are a new team. This is the kind of content we want to deliver, and we would love to know what's working and what's not. So we'd really appreciate anyone taking the time to fill that out and let us know how we can do better. But to finish off, we started with a simple statement that the opportunity has never been bigger and the barrier to entry has never been lower. You've now seen what that means in practice. The title was never supposed to be a marketing claim, but it was supposed to be a challenge that we hope you're now equipped to tackle. I'm now going to stop for a quick Q&A, but if you have any further questions either now or later, please come see us in the clubhouse. We have the PizzaKit demo running live. We would love to show you through and get any feedback you've got then. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Hang on.
Well, thank you. Like the entire presentation was quite technical, which is awesome. But I think also it added a lot of educational content like around the entire thing of like merchant of record. So can we expect more of that type of content from your team?
The first time I swallowed the wrong way. Yes, we're here to understand where the friction points are, understand where there's an education mismatch or where we're not delivering the information needed for you guys to understand exactly what our products do for you. So that's the exact kind of feedback we're talking about. With that kind of feedback, we can go away and we can come up with content that's going to help fill the gap and educate you on those areas for sure. Anything else? Awesome. Thank you very much.